Ladies and gentlemen, we are live in living color on a great day to be an American. It is a great day. Hello, thank you for spending your Saturday evening with us. If you are out there, we greatly appreciate it. I am Jake Nazar. My compatriots are Safe Fakadu and Ryan McDonald. Yes, Ryan was the he changed out of the hat that he wore to the game because obviously he was the Irish good luck charm that we needed.
Sing us a rebel song, Ryan, right now, please. Just one.
Ryan. Oh, God. Ryan was on the scene.
One day we'll be free.
Hofstra. There. I was in my living room. Safe, I think, was also in his living room. And man, I've never been more fired up to do a podcast in my life. Oh man, where do we begin? Where do we begin?
Let's start with the man who was there live. Yeah, Ryan, what was the scene?
Yeah, let's do it first. Yeah. %. Yeah. Yeah, it should have been Denver, Cuse in this one, and no one at Towson. We'll see what the number is tomorrow at Towson, but that they definitely should have done that. It was, I mean, 9,086. I think Steven said it was the, and I'm just checking out, seventh best. Or maybe 2014, 2011, 1999, 2009, 2001, 2017. So it looks like, yeah, seventh best Hofstra quarterfinal ever. It was the best one since 2017, which was 10,117. And if you're just looking in the kind of past decade, the ones that were better were Denver 2015, which was 13,076. 2018 at Annapolis 13,000. 2016 Brown 11,000. 2015 Navy 10,235. 2017 year, maybe the closest comparable we're looking at for like both attendances being great. Hofstra did 10,000 in 2017, and Delaware did 9,711. So yeah, pretty good total.
Sorry, I'm back. So
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know if the Annapolis is a pretty. I mean, look, these are all historic venues, but Annapolis is the juice. You know, so, but I would still expect in the range of this for Towson. Yeah. So.
I guess and we'll just talk about Georgetown real quick, and then clear the lane for Maryland Duke, or just get right into Maryland Duke. What do you think? Because Georgetown's a bit of a dud. Important garbage time goals
To some. Important to some.
Very Graham Bundy. Shout out to you, my man. I got that one. That's like a few 5.5 I put in there. So they, they almost actually naturally covered too. It's 4.5. Like if they had, but,
Ryan, we are getting feedback that we can hear everyone but you.
Okay, let's try that now. Okay. So let me just repeat myself with that. Notre Dame 16, Georgetown 11. Not as close as it seemed. As they said, though, important for the covering. But yeah, Notre Dame was dominant in every facet of this game, and I think outside of maybe Enneman having a couple shots go in that he didn't, that he maybe should have, and that could be a concern going forward. But otherwise, this was the Notre Dame team that we were expecting heading into the tournament, and this was kind of the question mark game because again they lost to Georgetown earlier in the season, and I think they erased a lot of doubt today with this performance. They were just eating up Georgetown the whole game and having their way on the offensive end till the fourth quarter with that flurry of goals where the Hoyas allowed safe to hit some parlays. Was stopping the Hoyas. So pretty much what Notre Dame wanted to see heading into Memorial Day weekend. A big victory, big confidence booster. Yeah, not too much to talk about this one because it was kind of the Irish were in control early and often in this one.
I don't know if the lacrosse reference stats are final. And sometimes I know he goes back and makes adjustments, but at least right now, from what I'm seeing in the page, Georgetown had 26 possessions in this game, and by the end, their offensive efficiency was great because they scored on every possession in the fourth quarter. But through 3 quarters, it was 18 possessions and 4 goals.
The face-off stats and the goaltending stats too. Like Will Lynch, 81% from the face-off X.
Yeah, and neither goalie really played well. Lynch was dominant. Honestly, it was the game Georgetown wanted for a quarter and a half. Notre Dame had 39 possessions. I said in my preview, if Notre Dame has over 40, Georgetown's not gonna win. Getting them to 39, both teams, it was a slow game. But I think eventually went down because again, they started firing on the net. I think Georgetown's average possession for the first 3 quarters was 50 seconds. Notre Dame's was 55, 67, 55. They were minute-long possessions, especially, and this was part of the problem for Georgetown, is, everything, obviously, but just situational, they blew 2 clears in a row at one point in the second quarter. Hess got this threw the ball away, right to the crease when it was, I want to say 5-3, something like that. 5-2 maybe. And it was okay, you just got it to 5-2, you get a stop, or 4-2, you get a stop. You can go back on offense, maybe cut it to 1 or 2 goal game. You're kind of in this, and then after that, it was the dam broke. They just couldn't hold up. It's the refrain we keep saying all the time. You gotta be perfect to beat Notre Dame. And Georgetown was not perfect in anywhere close to it.
Yeah, and one other thing I forgot to point out too is just how Notre Dame just sucked the game out by long possession after long possession, and then 10 seconds left in possession, they scored. That was the other thing, is that they completely shortened the game right from the get-go by taking long, deliberate possessions and then converting those long possessions into goals. It wasn't they didn't have a lot of shot clock violations out of it. They were converting with goals, and they just took 78 seconds off the clock at a time. Then they go to the face-off X, they win another face-off, suck another 70 seconds out, get a shot, clock reset, and then it's another 2 minutes. And that was a big part of this game, too, was that they sucked the life out of this game by really owning possession and being deliberate with their possessions and letting that clock bleed, where even if Georgetown was able to win a few face-offs, not that they really were, they weren't going to have much time to work with in the matter. So that 4 or 5 goal lead felt a lot more insurmountable because they just took the clock away.
It did, but I think they wanted them to take the clock away. I think Georgetown's defense could have come out and played more pressure if they wanted to. I don't think they wanted to. If the game was going fast and it was up and down the field, Georgetown wasn't going to win. They had to, Georgetown keeping it at 5-2 is okay, that's fine. In a way, it's you need to get, then you need to get it to 5-3. It couldn't get to they need to do what Maryland did, basically. I know Maryland, of course, won faceoffs, which was the big difference. But Maryland was fine with these long, drawn-out possessions because it was we'll draw it out too, and then we'll score, and we can just kind of keep it manageable. They couldn't keep it manageable. Once it, they got to 7-2, and that was it. It was over. So I don't think the pace was a problem. It's just their offense couldn't get anything. Just nothing. They couldn't get shots on goal. Entenmann didn't play great, I don't think, but he never really faced any shots. Georgetown had 20 shots on goal for the game, 33 shots total. Just, and again, the fourth quarter just blows it all out of whack. So, yeah, Notre Dame had Notre Dame did very little wrong. They were pretty. I don't know, they were perfect, but they're pretty dang good.
Yeah, that was the pace Georgetown wanted. They had their chance in the second quarter, I think, because that's when Moore actually did have a lot of saves, and just Georgetown either A, couldn't clear it, or B, had a turnover on the other end. And that's, I just, were you noting, Ryan, about the second to life force out of you? I mean, like that or you're already down, and then you kind of like regroup yourself in the second quarter, and just you're not, as you noted, like not able to get like a third or fourth goal to like just get some momentum going to the fourth. Because like I think they were able to just punch back. I think that's what we always say. Like you can't have these long stretches where you're not counter punching if you're the underdog. And Georgetown, like I said, I thought they had what they wanted in terms of like the pace. Like this was like, you know how they say the sidelines your extra defender if you're playing defense. Like time was Georgetown's teammate. They wanted it to just keep running so that like just limit the amount of possessions Notre Dame. But I'm thinking of the who I forget was the defenseman Napolitanos, like that just devastating. There was the end of the quarter, or sorry, after Georgetown had turned it over. I'm thinking of also the very first goal within a minute. I was like, that just wasn't, you know, what like these things that just kind of like knocked Georgetown. And it was like, I'm thinking of like Georgetown's quarterfinals, you know, of late, because like we kind of enjoy this team and stuff like that. And I was like, I think this is definitely better than, you know, UVA 2021. Obviously, they didn't even make it in 2022, but like last year was like probably their best quarterfinal performance. I guess the Yale, no, they didn't get the quarter. That was the first round against Yale and Hopkins. So it's just a disappointing thing. I mean, maybe like, you know, if they had a little bit better face-off, they may have been able to like, but it just felt like, it was just like permanently in neutral, their offense, like just couldn't really like, and anytime they were able to, because I thought the defense actually held up reasonably well, given the fact that it was like constantly on defense, you know, for both the first half, entire first half, but just wasn't to be. Like, there's this young team, maybe they kind of like outkick their coverage in terms of like getting this far, but maybe Penn State would have given a better game. But yeah, a little bit of a disappointing, quarterfinal matchup here.
The gap to the Final Four for them is a chasm. I mean, it's got like it's just the bottom line. Like they're not close. But pardon me, the gap to the Final Four, I think it's like they're not close. Like they're now will the gap come down maybe in the future? Yeah, probably. I don't know. You know, Notre Dame and some of these teams losing guys, but like it's a big gap. And Notre Dame is, you know, the bar right now, and you know they proved it. And they're going to be very, very tough to beat whoever they play next weekend. Syracuse, Denver, and if they win, Maryland, Hopkins, Virginia, whoever it is. All right, let's do this friggin' thing.
All right, so the other game, Maryland back to the Final Four with a come from behind 14-11 victory where they took control in the second half and did not let go en route to another Final Four performance. So Maryland heads back to Memorial Day weekend. Again, dominant second half. I think it was 8-5 at halftime?
Yes, so 9-3. 9-3 second half.
So huge second half propels Maryland in what was an absolute freaking slop fest.
7-2.
13-6 after they fell down 5-1.
Yeah, absolute slop fest, and definitely a game of, I would say the first quarter was dominated by Duke. Second half was both teams playing hot potato. And then the third quarter onward, Maryland taking over control. So a game that I lost a lot of brain cells watching because of how sloppy it got. But Maryland, to use a lacrosse coaching adage, very blue-collar, lunch pail effort to get the victory there.
So just a bunch of overlooked,
2-star, 3-star recruit.
You've forgotten, left for dead, buried, some might say. gritty guys in black. That are just the epitome of what you love about the game. Facing just that, a Duke and their, 5-star, all American, Harlem Globetrotters, team. Some had said that this Duke team was supposed to win multiple national championships. With Brandon O'Neal and all these guys. Some even say don't count out touchdown John Donowski. Do you know what I say? Do you know what others say? A lot of people are saying this. Never count out John Tillman.
Never.
Yes, I learned my lesson
Absolutely
after
not.
last week when it comes to Tills and Lars about counting them out. I learned the hard way last week and made my adjustments this week.
No one believed in us, Jake. But
no one believed in no one believed in us.
In my own defense, I did throw out them at number 1 at some point in this season. I think it was like week 3 or 4. I was like,
to be fair, they
The bus is closed, Safe.
Yeah, sorry, Safe. You.
You're right, Jake. We are back. That's the thing.
But sorry, Safe. Once again, we have to say, under no circumstances do you get hyped for your biggest rival.
No, I don't even care about that. I just barely got off the bandwagon.
A moment of weakness. I was there throughout. I was in the first Penn State game. I was right there, but the second Penn State game, I lost it. I was like, maybe it wasn't to be.
I was told Maryland didn't belong in the tournament.
Did you really hear that, or was that like two Cornell fans that genuinely had a question over how Maryland and Virginia finished the season?
Oh, no. I'm still getting people in the replies right now telling me they didn't belong in the tournament, to which I say to you, I don't care. Where's your team playing? Because the Terps are in the Final Four.
You can say, they earned their way to the Final Four. Exactly.
Yeah, like games.
They didn't.
But I will say, yeah.
Ball don't lie. Ball don't lie, Jake. That's what they say. The kids.
What's the scoreboard say? I don't care about no RPI. For the record.
RIP is what
You know what we have? You know what we call teams that, look great on the fancy stats, but lose? Call them the Carolina Hurricanes.
We call them losers, Ryan. We call them losers.
Sorry, I wanted to get my Carolina Hurricanes thing in. Like, as much as I hate the Rangers, that is the most satisfying Rangers playoff series win I think they'll ever will be. I'm still not happy about the result, but man, I'm so sick of the Canes. Sorry about that digression.
Oh, so you're saying another team from North Carolina underachieved in the postseason? Man,
same market.
Hate to see
Research
that.
Trying. But yeah, no. But yeah, I will say.
Yeah, anyone who said Maryland, not going to be in the tournament, come outside. I want to see it. Anyone who picked them to lose to Princeton, come outside.
1 second, I did pick
It's like
Princeton.
Brendan Fraser in School Ties, just screaming, "Cowards!" Like out in the rain, just all this rain.
Hey guys!
Oh man!
Hey guys! I'm outside right now because I picked Princeton against Maryland.
You can come back in, Ryan. We'll go back in. We'll let you back in. You're welcome back. I don't know if you're on the bandwagon.
Well, no,
but,
I did switch my belief
up.
in Tillman this week. As I said, I was leaning Maryland with it. And
you guys, listen. You guys are at the bus stop. We might make.
Well, as long as the orange are in, I got to stay on on the orange train. The Joe Biden, the Syracuse Orange Express.
Safe. What were you gonna say?
No, I just when did Ryan? I was wondering because the crowd, when did it when was the shift?
End of the third quarter. Yeah, end of the third quarter,
goal?
I think, is when you started to see a shift, and you started to see the neutrals latch on to Maryland as well. The Maryland crowd was bringing the energy when that comeback was going on, but then we say it's a lot of times in the NCAA basketball tournament, you see it where the energy starts to get with the neutrals getting behind the team, and that was the case with that Maryland run. The neutrals were starting to swap over onto the Maryland side with it. And just in general, I mean, again, I think Maryland a very gritty performance to get the victory, but man, what a fumble job out of Duke. I think you will get to that in a second,
yeah,
but
we'll get to that.
to give praise to Maryland, I think it's a vintage Tillman coaching performance. Things aren't going their way, and they find ways to adjust and do it. We talked last week about the adjustments they made between the Big Ten tournament and the first round, and you saw it in game here. They were getting, their offense was looking lethargic in the first quarter, and it was looking like, oh, are they going back to April, Maryland? But then they kept their defensive performance up. They were winning the faceoffs, and that was a huge key in that was that Duke had no answer for Maryland at the faceoff X. And they used that to their advantage and chip away. And then fourth quarter comes and the dam bursts. And I think very much a vintage John Tillman adjustments type game.
I think for me, where it really shifted, and where you could feel the crowd start to get into it, was one. I mean, Jack Brennan's goal at 9-7. I don't think this shifted there, but that was huge because 9-6. I don't know if Maryland gets it done, but he gets the goal that beats the buzzer by what, a millisecond.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a shock. I thought they were going to review that for a shot clock violation after that winning because it was like right when it hit zero.
I don't know. I don't think they could have overturned it.
Yeah.
It was like so instantaneous. But that gets to 9-7, and I always, what do I always say with Maryland? If they're within 2 with Weirman, you got a shot because you just need to get 1, and then he's probably going to get you the next face-off, and there you go. It's in it. And to me, it was Maryland wins the opening face-off. Jack Corus turns it over, but Eric Spanos, and give this to Eric Spanos, I don't think he had a point today. This might have been the biggest play of the game. He hunts down Will Frizzoli at half field with a trail check, gets it back. Duke fails to clear, and Maryland scores with Syracuse. Ryan Syracuse had the best game he's ever played in his life. I mean, unbelievable. And it gets it to 9-8, and they finally got within 1 because they kept getting to 2, and Duke would build it back, or they got it to 2, and then McNaney has the throwaway at midfield. It got it to 9-8, and then Duke wins the next face-off. But McNaney makes a save, and then when it was 9-9, it's like, oh, it's like shit, this is real. Like it can happen, and then from there, like Ryan said, the dam just broke. Patrick James, Maryland scored on like 5 straight shots at one point. For the fourth quarter in total, Maryland scored on 7 of 13 possessions. Syracuse got it to 9-9. Braden Erksa gets it to 10-9. And then I would say, the real backbreaker when it pretty much finished it was Jamison finally makes a save at 12-11, and then they blow the clear. Just like a simple, connect, like Jamison's passing to Jack Gray, I think. And Maryland gets it back at 12-11 with 4 minutes left, and Malt scores to 13-11. To me, what it felt like was, and you've seen this before out of Duke, the beginning of the game, Maryland played like we've seen Maryland first quarter. You've seen it all. Like they start bad. Like they are not a fast starter. Out of the block, like what is the Preakness going on like right now? Probably
20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, like Maryland is not the horse that gets out of the starting block very fast. Duke came out looking great. At one point in this game, Maryland had 11 turnovers and Duke had 1. Which says it all. But once the game got closer, and once it got to the fourth quarter, and everyone in the stadium realized, and I think Brian, you could say, and everyone at home realized, like, this is a game. The Maryland crowd starts, getting into it. You could hear it, on the TV. Cotter, credit to him, like pointed out the visual of like the entire Maryland fans are on their feet, and the Duke fans are like just sitting. There's like no one standing at all. It's like this nervous energy took over Duke. Like they kept pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing. And they didn't feel like they were at ease. And Maryland just felt like they had confidence. Like they were just unloading the clip. Like you have a shot, take it. A big part of that is, Maryland on the back end with all that experience with Zapps and McNaney. McNaney made, I think Adam put in our chat, the difference. McNaney made a save at either 10-10 or 11-11. It was like a really tough one, low, and he got it. It was, let me see if I can point out where it was. 11-11. Duke tied at 11 and won the face-off, and McNaney made a save on McAdory. McAdory got his hands free. Like as soon as it was happening, I was like, oh shit. And McNaney made the save. Like that was the difference. Like Jamison never really got a stop where it was like, man, that's a big one. McNaney, yes, again the clear, it's an adventure right now, but like between those pipes, he had saves where it was like, whew, all right. And Duke just they felt and failed too. They pressed on offense where they were just, there was no flow offensively, really. I mean, they got the goal with Dyson, 1 second left on the shot clock. Duke felt like a team that the weight of the moment and the fact they have blown the lead ate them up a little bit. And we talked about it, on the show on Wednesday or Thursday. Who's the team that's got the most pressure coming in this weekend? It might have been Duke. And they played like it. They played like a team that just had the weight of the world on their shoulders, and you could see it seep into their play. And obviously, when Maryland's winning faceoffs like that, McNaney's making saves. It can, it can get to you.
It's almost like a sliding doors moment because this is the same team that dismantled them in 2021. Not the same team, but you know what I mean. Some of the faces. You know what I'm saying? Then that's why I thought Duke. I remember we were talking about that Thursday. I was like, I think if Maryland can keep it close, the veterans on that team know that they can make it happen because they've done it. The 2022 run, even 2021 to an extent. And I just felt like with Duke, maybe there wasn't that same confidence in their abilities that when it's crunch time that to be able to close the deal. I think it was what really ate up Duke, jumping up to that early lead. I was like, oh man, maybe it's going to be almost kind of like Georgetown. So I was like, this is what's I felt like oh man, Maryland's going to have a dud too. And then, but yeah, it was just they had, and we were talking on Thursday, better players at those key positions. I as good as Jameson's played throughout the year, I still trust Big Mac because of what he's done. He's not. I'm sorry. Brooke Woodman is he's past our all-time leader, right? I believe the
all-time leader in faceoff ground balls. No, yeah, he ain't. A coach actually made a good point about this. Sorry to get you off. I read an IL. I think it was Kevin Brown's article on Inside the Crosse, where he got the feedback for the coaches' insight into these games, and he mentioned Naso's a lot smaller than Weirman is. He can get out physicaled at times. And I felt even to go feeling Dutch. Naso was his entire strategy in the fourth quarter felt home run or bust on the face. He was trying to beat the whistle. And a couple times he got it, but a couple times he also violated. And it felt like he was playing. You could tell he was having a counterpunch because Weirman had him from the get go. But yeah, I thought that was a great
right
point.
off the bat. Even when it was 5-1, it was all terrible.
Yeah, Weirman. You could see he felt like the more imposing player. Especially you saw it with 2 goals. I mean, that's 2 of his 4 goals this year. Maryland's been waiting for that since 2022 in terms of as great as Luke's been, him going to the goal. That was another thing with Duke. They did not cut it off. Weirman going to the goal at all. A lot of teams have done that because it's you can't let Weirman get that. That's what he was so good in 2022. Was obviously he dominated faceoffs, but he could score and pass. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. I thought that was a great point. You could see this was not a matchup Naso was gonna thrive in. And look, yeah, he's great, but he ain't Luke Weirman.
No, absolutely. And I think Luke's goal in the first quarter just to puts some spirit back into that Maryland team. Shows I think he knew hey, he's just senior leader. I need to make a play, and he's a playmaker. And then in Zap, again, Duke has good defense, but Ajax Apatello, it's like such a good start since he's a freshman, and probably may go down as the best defense in the Big Ten history, when it's all said and done. But like, yeah, so, and we were talking about like who is he going to cover, and I thought it was brilliant that they put it on Zawada, because it is kind of true. You like the first quarter aside, if you choke out Duke's ability to like move the ball, and then it's just like where it's going to come from Dyson. O'Neal obviously star players, but I think Zawada's kind of like the straw that stirs that drink, and if you kind of cut that off or just limit it, like you kind of saw what happened the next three quarters. They essentially only scored six goals the rest of the way. So it's just like in those key matchups. Yeah, maybe Maryland's offense is young. But maybe this also was like kind of a good thing. Like they didn't know any better. Just like have anything to lose here. Spanos, kind of a quiet game, but the depth that Maryland has is able to find. Syracuse have like a major game there. Maltz had like multiple like big time moments. Like Maryland's depth like kind of overcompensated the other parts where they were lessening, but like they were better in like several, or not several, but at least three really key areas, and that's why they got the victory.
Yeah, I don't know if they're young on offense so much, but they are cohesion, experience, playing together. All those things I think are, it's not the 22 team. But it was experience here. I mean, Syracuse and Maltz are like fourth, fifth year guys, 7 goals. In total, Maryland got goals from 6 different scorers, but you had Weirman with 2, Jack Brennan, shout out Jack Brennan, coming off the bench with a big goal. Zach Whittier had a couple good assists. Maryland's second midfield in total. 2 assists from Whittier, a goal from Brennan. Duke, meanwhile...
It was really only Dyson Williams and Brennan O'Neal.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth, Ryan. 6 goals from Dyson Williams, 3 goals from Brennan O'Neal, and then Max Sloat had 1. Duke got goals from 4 players, and 9 of the 11 were from 2 guys. Duke, it wasn't there, and there was a depth element, not in terms of maybe like Duke wearing down, but Maryland was able to just find different guys who could make some things happen, and they did. And you said the adjustments are key. Like I was opposed, and I'll put my hand up. This is never count out tills. I wanted zaps on O'Neal because I thought the worst thing you can have happen is O'Neal gets engaged or he looks hungry. That's where that's not good. But they stuck to their guns and they stuck to the matchup. But they adjusted. The key was they put Canfield more on O'Neal later. That was a big move. And then they started sliding. The adjacent slide to Brennan came very quick after that first quarter. Like it was like anytime he gets that left hand, you have to the shorty adjacent has to be there like on glue. And that was the kind of key that they made. And offensively, they just kept coming. And they really kind of hunted shorties a bit more. Braden Erksa was fantastic in the fourth quarter. They really just started to hunt those shorties a little bit more in those matchups. And overall, it was Maryland made all the adjustments in the game, and Duke didn't have any. They, once, as it's been the refrain all year for Duke, once that offense goes, it goes. Like it was. I mean, they scored two 6-on-6 goals in the last, because the one Dyson goal after McNaney was failed to clear was a broken play. They scored 2 6-on-6 goals in the in total. Actually, even if you count that the Dyson goal at the end of the quarter, the second quarter, they scored 4 6-on-6 goals the last 3 quarters of the game. Like really, it's 5 goals in the first, 2 like turnovers and clears, and then it was 4.
And I think
wasn't there.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, as I said, like the reason why this game was so mind-numbing to watch was just all the mistakes going on in the game for Duke. I mean, Maryland was making a lot in the first 5/8 of the game as well, but Duke just didn't stop. It was like mind-numbing just to see, possessions that were too quick on shots that weren't going in, the failure to clear on easy passes, and just locking up. And I think that's kind of, as you said, a kind of a microcosm of this season is we never knew what Duke team we were going to get. The first quarter was like the ACC semifinal against Syracuse, or the last week against Utah, or maybe the win against Virginia, or the win against Princeton. The rest of the game, it felt like the second loss to Notre Dame, or the loss to UNC, or the first loss to Syracuse, or the loss against Penn. The Jekyll and Hyde characteristic of this Duke team was encompassed in one 4-quarter game of lacrosse, where you get, for the first quarter, coming out of that, it's like, wow, if Duke's going to beat up Maryland like this, they might win the whole thing. And then by the end of the game, it's like, yeah, this feels like the Duke team that we had no idea what team we're going to get from a week-to-week basis, because, again, that was so reminiscent of some of the duds they laid throughout the season.
Mistakes, yeah, it's hard. They didn't turn the ball over a lot. It just felt, I don't know, lackadaisical maybe. I'm trying to think. They didn't have much juice after the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
No, like they just didn't play with much. And this is the thing I think we could say. Say you've talked about times. A team that lost in the championship a year ago, and you mentioned like they just wanted to get back to May, but they didn't. We've seen teams in the past who have lost the championship, and they use that as like fuel. Like it propels them. 06 Virginia, rather. 2022 Maryland. There are other examples as well. This team never felt like they played with they were that kind of, like they had that in the back of their head, that they had it as like fuel for them for the whole season. They just kind of came out looking like, Duke, I guess, and yeah, the vibe just, they came out with a big punch, but once Maryland just hung around and hung around and hung around, and that was the thing. Maryland, the game should have been at 7-3 or at 8-5. It should have been like 12-3. They should have buried them in the first half, because Maryland, again, at one point Maryland has 10 more turnovers, and this is where say if you're 100% right, like the key positions, face-off and goalie, are so important in the tournament. Like in over a whole season, you can get away with it, but in the key, these games, if you can get stops and you can get possessions, you can keep a game within touching distance. And Duke lost those battles decisively. The goalie matchup was clear to McNaney, and the faceoff matchup was clear to Weirman, and it meant that Maryland was within touching distance for the entire way. And eventually, like you said, around like the sloppiness of it was definitely sloppy. That's for sure. The sloppiness of it meant that like it stayed to a point where like whoever got the next run was going to win the game. Because if Duke up 2 goals goes on the run, it's over. But if Maryland can get it to tied or get the lead, you could feel like, oh, well, now you get to play out front with the faceoff. Now you get to play out front with McNaney making stops, and that's a weapon. I think it can't be overstated like how big that was in the ultimate result. Is Maryland had 9 more possessions in the game. That's a lot. Like that's a lot. And they had, in total for the game, McNaney came down with, let me see what we got it at, 11 saves, and Patrick Jamison came down with 8 out of 22 for Jamison, 11 out of 22 for Maryland. Duke not getting enough rubber on the cage. Like that was like their possessions just, it wasn't sloppy necessarily, but their possessions just weren't good. Like there was just not, they're either going too fast or the shot clock's winding down. They get in funks, and that's just
part of it was Maryland's
like,
D, but another part of it is they were just getting some of those possessions. They were taking their sweet time moving the ball over, and it's like, hey, they got a good look now. They're passing it up. They're going back to the top of the box. They're going back behind the cage, and they're wasting another 20 seconds. That was part of it as well. They had some good looks, and they just passed them up. And part of it was Maryland again, with Tillman making the adjustments. They were quicker on their slides, especially to O'Neal, but some of it was self-inflicted by Duke, where they were just, trying to look for the perfect shot when they had a great shot opportunity.
It's problem solving. I don't think they knew how to solve problems. Like Maryland was throwing different stuff at them and making adjustments. I don't think they knew how to get past it. You saw it, like say you mentioned, like this. The key was Zawada. Like if you want to do is you take the ball move away, man. Like they start playing 1-on-1.
They're like, yeah, since ISO ball, it almost felt like 90s early aughts basketball. Just clear, but it just there was no cohesion. It felt like and it was Maryland wouldn't quit. Like I think like sometimes Duke when they get those blowouts, it says they get to that like 8-3 point.
They wait for the other team to quit.
Yeah, and then there's kind of run it up a little bit, because just all the defenses are breached at some point in time, but because of the overwhelming, superiority of their lineup to some teams that they face. But it was like if you're similarly talented roster and you just have Maryland and if I'm thinking of the Terps are just weathered. Like they play every single one of these games for this feels, especially with this class, these last 4 years, it feels like they play these kind of games all the time where either to just somehow make it happen, or maybe it's not all. And I'm thinking of other quarterfinals, like the Hopkins quarterfinal in 2022. Like Hopkins was probably favored I don't know, by 3 or 4 goals, but Maryland was able to just systematically figure out what you're doing well, make it difficult for you to do that, and then you're going to have to make adjustments. And if you don't, that's why you have only 6 goals for the last 3 quarters.
But that's the other baffling thing with this is though that would make more sense about Maryland's been here before, but so's Duke. That's the baffling thing about this is Duke's been to 2 Final Fours with this group. And it looked like a team that was one of these teams that looked like they were in this for one of the first go-rounds. Because, again, I get it with Maryland having the experience with Tillman and some of the veterans, but this is a Duke team that
they had less than Duke.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying. This is a Duke team that's been there, done that. They've had a coach with 3 national titles, and they look like and at times they look like one of these teams that were, back in the ACC or Big Ten, or maybe an Ivy League team that made it for the first time in 5 years or something, where they've seemed out of their depth there at that second half.
So look back at 2021, they were dismantled. I remember Dana was at the press conference, just looking like he saw a ghost when he was reading the box score. Thinking of, they obviously didn't make it in 2022.
This was the Loyola game. That was that Loyola quarterfinal. Except Maryland won faceoffs and closed it out.
And then last year was their shot. They got hit with a buzzsaw against Notre Dame. Maybe I think if they played any other team but Notre Dame, they probably win the title last year. But I think the fact that they didn't get it done, at least one point you can look at your coach or look at certain players on the team, hey, these guys did it. 2022, obviously they almost did it in 2021. I don't think Duke don't meet up to the moment.
It's not a killer. There's not a killer instinct. It's not in the tight moments. They're great. They're a great front runner. I mean, they are a fantastic front runner. When they get out ahead, they can punch you and they take out. They explode early. We see it. The Princeton game. That Princeton game early in the year. Really, they got on Princeton early. They played angry and it was and Princeton was oh, okay. Yeah, it wasn't happening that day. And Naso, or I think faceoffs were pretty close in that one. But the Syracuse game, they got on Syracuse early and often, and they got a big lead. And Syracuse did kind of get out a little bit, but you got it's 6 goals or so, and that was it. Because Maryland was able to keep it within touching distance, Duke lost that edge. Like they're not a team that like goes punch for punch, And also, I guess the Penn State game, but the Penn State game, I mean, everyone knows that one. But like they just don't. There's not a killer instinct there. Something's the edge, the juice has kind of been lost over the last.
Yeah, and you saw with the first Syracuse game too. Syracuse gets off to a fast start, and Duke had no answer the entire game.
We watched that live, Jake. I was like, what's going on? What is happening here?
I mean, all this, and just a heads up, folks, since we're kind of approaching the hour mark. If you got any questions, anything, hop in the chat. Feel free to throw them at us. We'd love to kind of
speaking of which, David Leathers says in the chat, potential for a Maryland Hopkins Final Four match now. It's there,
yeah. It's there.
Jake. Yeah, we met each other, but if I got to take you down.
But yeah, I think, well, either way, Maryland's getting a good rivalry game in the Final Four. You're either getting Hopkins or you're getting Virginia, so that's going to be a fun matchup automatically.
It's great. We're tied. I saw that note, the tied for lead for most Final Fours.
Yes, with Hopkins can take it back tomorrow. If they win. Also, if you could, we hear Long does good things, so we'll appreciate that.
Got 2 likes.
All of this, thank folks. All of this, I mean, this was John Tillman's masterpiece. Like this was when, like, was it that's the Super Bowl 25 win when the Bills beat the Giants?
The Giants beat
the
Bill
Bills.
Parcells beat the Bills.
Yeah, Bill Parcells. Yeah.
I was thinking Atlanta. New England.
Yeah, but I mean, the Bills were such like a underdog, the Giants were the underdog.
Yeah, the Giants were the underdog in that. The Bills.
The Giants were the underdog, and they played the like ball control, like just take 7-8 minutes off the clock. And in the end, they sent, and that was the Bills, the K-gun offense with Jim Kelly, and Thurman Thomas, and all those. And they sent Bill Belichick's game plan to the Hall of Fame after it because it was, it's one of the more famous, it's in NFL lore forever. Wide right, as Ryan mentioned. This is that kind of game from Tills, and Jesse Bernhardt just was a whole bunch of credit for what they did defensively. Mike Phipps against me heat. I mean, but that offense delivered. Like this was the coaching matters game. Like Duke has, if you were to line them all up, Duke's offense, Maryland's offense, who gets on the field? I don't know, 5 or 6 guys of Duke's. Defensively, maybe it's a little bit different. I mean, Zaps is obviously in there. Maryland's got Zaps, McNaney, and Weirman. After that, they maybe got 1 or 2. But this was coaching. Maryland had the adjustments, as Ryan said, and Maryland is the ultimate thing that, you can say things about Tills, like maybe the players don't play as free, and like free flowing things like that, because he is, a methodical, kind of coach. But Maryland's teams, they're problem solvers. They always, I think Crosse, like, you don't let Maryland teams hang around. If you let them hang around, they are going to push the game to the last couple minutes, and they really do thrive in those, situations. And this was for a Duke team, as we said, that had all these expectations. This has been the indictment on them. It doesn't ever seem to come together. It doesn't seem to live up. The whole seems less than the sum of its parts. This Maryland team is the ultimate more than the sum of their parts. I mean, this is the most maligned Maryland team in John
April,
Tillman's tenure.
People are ready to get rid of
April, they look like a first-round exit.
They scored 5 goals against Hopkins. They scored 7 goals in the fourth quarter today. They scored how many goals against Penn State? They scored 14 goals in the last 2 games going to the tournament. They scored 14 goals today against Duke. It was the most maligned. It is in some ways, against talent-wise. Yeah, there are many Maryland teams more talented than this one. They've taken heat, but this is what you get. You get this team in the tournament and the ability to flip the switch so quickly and figure it out. This John Tillman in the quarterfinals, 10-1. And the 1 was avenged because we got the call this time.
I'm just curious about that because they didn't make any announcement in the stadium. Was it an automatic review?
It had to be, yes.
Last 4 minutes.
Are an
Okay, yeah,
automatic
because I
review.
didn't know if it was last 2 minutes, last 3 minutes, or last 4 minutes with the new rule. I figured it was booth initiated, but they didn't do a good job of explaining it at the stadium. So I just
This wasn't as egregious a blown, it was a averted blown call, but
well, that's why we have
yeah,
replays. So
that's when I saw that I was like, oh my god, it's happening again. It's like 29, but no,
it wasn't insane. I think Mark pointed out, and Mark has a question for us. I'll answer it later. But Mark pointed out, like, he's like, we have replay for this, and we're like taking like 15, 20 seconds to like on a goal that was like, shouldn't it be like if you're the ref right there and oh, this is a like goal line call. Shouldn't you just like stop?
yeah, because there was a clear and it was so confusing because there was like 13 players on the field from Maryland and Duke's not knowing what to do with clearing it. It was just like one big.
It took them longer to figure out how
it was
much
like a clown car going on that
to figure out whether or not it was a goal or not.
Yes,
yeah, that 12 seconds was just insanity of everyone just like, what's going on here? And just like, oh, are we continuing to play or what? And then, like, finally they blow the whistle, and it's like,
so like, and also,
or do it,
all right, we're going second out, okay,
or do it like in the NFL, whenever it's a 50-50 call it a touchdown because it's automatically reviewed. Just call it a goal, take a look at the replay, and make the determination from there.
Just have a dude in Indianapolis watching every one of these games with like multiple monitors and just like hit a buzzer.
I love they're just over there going. Ryan, to answer your question, follow up on it. So it's 4 minutes. Yeah, last 4 minutes. They didn't really stop until like Tills threw the red flag.
Which is technically not legal, but
he can't challenge it. Yes, but it felt like it was like that was like their, so much of this replay thing is like, I'm not sure if you're allowed to do this.
Yeah, they never make this very black and white and clear, do they?
No, and it's like it really felt like Tills like throwing the flag got their attention, like, oh, I guess we gotta, and then we.
Did an assistant like tell him like we can't do this? Because I saw Tills like interacting with them.
Like and Bernhardt like picks up the flag and gives it back.
That was great.
It was unbelievable.
This sport. Oh my god.
I love this sport, man.
So what was Mark's question for us?
Oh, Mark's we'll get to when we talk
okay.
It's related to tomorrow. But yeah, like this is the Tillman. I mean, this is of all his Final Fours. There was 2011, 2012 one. He's at 4 where they were, a low, like unseeded or low seed. I really think this is the best. This is the most, if they win the title, yes. For this, I think it's just the most overachieving job he's done. Like, getting this team, like last year's team, when you look at it, that team, if you had McNaney in there and Zapatello in there and Eric Molliver in there, I think that was the Final Four team last year. Like, it wasn't 2022, but it was, we had them. We thought they were going to make the Final Four going into the year. And it's like, oh, well, Eric Molliver gets hurt, and then Ajax goes down the last. Like, then McNaney goes down in the second game. Yeah, and then Zapatello got hurt and didn't play in the last, 2 to 3 games. Like, that was the Final Four team, fully healthy. I don't think they won the championship, but that they were still like a Final Four really good Maryland team. This team is like, I mean, we see it. Like they're playing with sticks in the mud sometimes. Like, but this is why you have John Tillman. You always got a shot. And to so many again key guys like Ryan Siracusa scores 3 goals. He spent most of his career in the game. Daniel Maltz, the forgotten man, scores 4 goals. And then there was the known knowns, safeties like to say, they were huge, but it was the kind of Jack Brennan who struggled to score all year. Like, I think it's his 3rd goal of the year. That's the stuff you need. And on the other end for Duke, it was just the known knowns. It was O'Neal and Dyson, and that was it.
All right. So shall we turn our attention to tomorrow now?
Yeah, I guess we can. That's when everyone. No, I remember I took receipts. I saw people told me they still shouldn't be in the tournament. They got lucky. I heard, I saw all of it, and we we do not forget. But again, it's a great day to be a Terp. It's a great day to be an American, and we will be remembering this one for a long time. Yeah. The street there, I was going outside. People were walking up to me and told me Dino couldn't make a Final Four with Brendan O'Neill and Josh Shawada, but Tills did it with Ryan Syracuse and Daniel Maltz.
This is your Churchill moment. When all the ships are coming back
Oh man!
from Dunkirk, you just jump on the mic. We will fight him in Stewart. We will fight him.
We'll fight him in Philly.
We'll fight him in Philadelphia.
Oh man, what a day!
Will it continue will it be the Crosse Commission Final Four plus Notre Dame? Is the question.
Oh God. Well,
did I say College Course or Crosse Commission?
That would
always,
be perfect.
The Crosse Commission
Whatever
Final Four plus
matter.
Notre Dame.
Sure.
Will it be that? We got Syracuse, Denver.
Lord.
We got Johns Hopkins, Virginia. Mighty interesting day tomorrow.
Yeah, I think David in the chat just said, and should be good games tomorrow. I expect. I mean, if you got any questions, guys, about the games tomorrow, thoughts about the games you want us to kind of dive into, we'll feel free. When it came in, some of the line. What was the line say for Maryland Duke?
Was
it 3.5? 4.5?
Yeah.
I think it ended at 3, right?
Yeah,
Duke
some of them had
favorite.
3.5, 3. Yeah.
Maryland 3.5 was easy money. I think in the end, they were just but. And some of them are still. I mean, if we go right now to, let me pull up the DraftKings. Tomorrow's Cuse is -2.5. Virginia's -2.5. I think those are a goal and a half too high. I think on paper, if you looked at these 4 games, Notre Dame was the heavy favorite. Yes, there was the element that Georgetown beat them. But Georgetown was, I think, the 8th team out of 8 probably in this. I mean, they're the 8th seed in this quarterfinal field, and Notre Dame is the prohibitive favorite. The rest of these 3 games to me looked like real humdingers potentially. I know Maryland Duke maybe some, but Denver Cuse we talked about on the show. So it looks hard to split that one, really. And then Hopkins Virginia. I mean, Hop obviously got the win earlier in the year in Charlottesville. It's Virginia in the quarterfinals with Lars, but they've had in these ton of tough games. They haven't necessarily played their best. Very disparate, styles. In Towson, obviously, I think the last 3 games of the quarterfinal weekend looked very enticing coming in. Maryland Duke delivered by the end, and I think the games tomorrow look to me very close games. I would be surprised if we got a blowout or a non-competitive game in either one of those 2.
Yeah, and again, I think with Hopkins, Virginia especially, I feel like even with Hopkins winning in the regular season game, that game was close throughout. There wasn't much to separate the 2, and I think you're going to get more of the same there. And again, Syracuse-Denver is which units are going to show up. Are we going to see the same Denver offense that we saw last week, or are we going to see the one that struggled in the Big East tournament and be one and done? What are we going to see out of Syracuse's defense? We know we're going to have Syracuse's offense pumping goals in, but can the defense not have a quarter lapse like they've been having lately, as well as with Mark? It's going to be a fascinating.
Oh, I just realized if Hopkins and Denver wins, this is essentially 2015 Final Four. Notre Dame, Hopkins, Maryland, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, no triple. Sorry for this.
That was the first time we worked. We all that was the first year I started writing with you and Matt, right? I remember I was just a contributor. And I went to the final. Yeah, that was a great year in Philly. Jake, I always tell you that I saw the Terps bus. I went for a run. I took that Friday off. I didn't get the media pass at that time, but I remember I was running on Broad Street and I saw the Terps bus, and I did have a Hopkins shirt on. I don't know who looked at me, but we had a moment.
By the way,
you got it.
breaking news: no Triple Crown winner.
Okay. This will be the Triple Crown.
That's what was said. This is our Triple Crown.
Yeah, any one of Syracuse, Maryland, Notre Dame, and then Hopkins or Virginia in the Final Four is a pretty, that's a humdinger, for attendance potentially. You're the box office. The stakes are, like we said it, in the review, like when you get the teams that have the history and the things like that, the stakes become they feel more magnified. Like you got Denver trying to get to a Final Four for the first time in 7 years. Q's trying to get to a Final Four for the first time in 11 years. And Hopkins, Virginia. Hopkins, this kind of 2-year window, if they can't get it done or get over to a Final Four, Milliman's answered all the kind of questions about, like, can he build a successful program at Hopkins 100%? But it'll start to kind of linger. Maybe same as it has with Georgetown. Can he get over the hump to the Final Four? Virginia, the last, saw with Duke. Duke, Notre Dame, Virginia. This is all kind of it's the last rodeo for this kind of era of these teams. And Notre Dame obviously gave themselves another shot at history, back-to-back titles. Duke could not get it done, and they leave that era empty-handed. Virginia is not going to leave it empty-handed because they won the title in 2021, but it did. There was a feeling of like hunting down. If I would tell you after 2021 that Virginia wouldn't win a title the next 3 years, I think you probably would have been surprised.
They had dynasty potential.
Yeah, and so all of the stakes now are a little, more amplified when you have these teams. And I think the games are all really close. I think Houston, Denver, it feels, you can see both teams' path to victory very clearly. Hughes, if they can win faceoffs and Will Mark has a strong game early, gets going, makes some saves, and then just let that offense, take the rips. Denver, if they can win faceoffs with Stathakis, if maybe, if they can control the pace, keep it a more, tighter, lower event game, and force Hughes to maybe play some catch up on that good defense. That could work to the Pios' advantage. So I think that one's, I came away from it I came in thinking Syracuse, and I've come out, feeling, I thought a little bit Denver. Now I'm kind of going back to Cuse. Yeah. I think it's that
as
kind
I
of
said
game.
on Thursday night, I feel like heart says Cuse, head says Denver, and constantly at odds with one another. The margins are going to be very thin with that one. And again, with Hopkins, Virginia, it's a throw out the record book rivalry game. It's two blue bloods who've been there before in program history. They've had epic battles throughout their history, and it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out too, because you can see that going a million different ways as well. So it's going to be a very fascinating Sunday in Towson.
Yeah, I mean, Safe, I don't know how you're feeling.
This is the game I wanted. Lars has loomed large over our pot for. It's great to follow his career with UVA. So just a perfect antagonist kind of. And now we've grown to love him for sure, and we've always appreciated and respected him. But he's just the guy and the team that if you want to I remember when Hopkins beat Virginia at Klockner, people were like, this is a sign that Hopkins this Virginia is a standard bearer team. Now, Hopkins used to be part of that standard bearer, but they fell off a little bit. But to be back, you got to beat the teams that are already there. There's only 4 spaces at this dinner table in Philly, so you have to take one away from Virginia. And it's this is a game that kind of really feels to me like a measuring stick. I was like, hey, this is one of the top teams of the last 4 or 5 years, and team to measure by it, with the chance to play the biggest rival for the school in Philadelphia. And for me personally, it was 9 tournaments since the last time Hopkins was in Philly. So it was just poetic justice for me. Just oh, this would be great. This is a great start. Now it's easier said than done. I think Virginia well, I kind of made some jokes about like, who they beat, and they did beat Maryland, who is a Final Four team, and they're still Virginia, and Lars like makes it happen. The money round, especially for, I wonder what his run has been like with them. Essentially, the 2022 is the only loss I can think of.
He's in the quarterfinals. Lars is 4-1. I want to say 19.
22 was the loss to Maryland, and 23
16 at Brown.
So
so 4-1.
Unless you have like an absolutely historic once in a generation type team, like Lars seems to like get it done in this round. But to me, like Hopkins, I was concerned during the Lehigh game because it was just like everything that I didn't like about the team. And I love a lot about the team, like happened at the long stretches where didn't score. I think like part of that is like with the weather, but like Lehigh had a game plan and they were able to execute it and just like take time off the clock. But Hopkins was able to run with Virginia last time, so I think like actually if it goes into, as you noted, Jake, if they kind of go up and down, that Hopkins may be suited for that. I think like they're not really a team where like possessions are limited and like if it's kind of like a pace of Lehigh, but like I think if Hopkins needs to run, they can, and I think being at Towson is going to help. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly the weather-wise. I think it should be a nice day, like kind of today, Jake. I don't know if the weather down there, but I think if it's like a nice clear day, that have no like. I'm concerned a little bit about face-off, but I believe in this defense, and I think like even if they don't have a good defensive day, that they could still play well in that middle 50% of the field and like not let it totally derail. But my main concern is just like what happens if they handcuff Jacob Angela if he's unable to really get into the flow of the offense. Like there's my point. Like I love that there's a lot of people who can score on this team, but I felt like there's a lack of like a go-to guy, like absolute like. But Collison may be that hitter, and like if like they're able to attack Virginia's short stick defenseman and put a little bit of pressure there, maybe that opens up things for the attack to actually get some good looks at the cage. Noon's up and down. Lars is going to stick with him. I think if Hopkins can get to him early, maybe that gets a little bit in his head. And if Hop like just doesn't get like blown out in the first quarter, like that's my thing. Like Virginia like has such a surge right out the gates in these quarterfinal games I found, and like if you're not able to withstand it, like you can kind of get left behind. But like I feel like Hopkins can just withstand that first quarter, just get it to the halftime with like down one or ideally up one. This is in the second half because I feel this team, it's kind of built for this moment that they have this lineup to beat a Virginia. I think I felt like when I saw like what Millman's doing, I felt like he's kind of maybe trying to do what Lars did down in UVA, but obviously different styles and stuff like that. But aggressive defense, like he's Hop is one of the most penalized team in Big Ten, so obviously Millman doesn't want that to happen, but like at least it gives them the leash to be like, hey, you need to make a play. I like how they double team when appropriate. So I really feel good about Hopkins D. I just concerned a little bit about the offense if Virginia gets on a roll on face-off and there's just like little stretches where Hop doesn't have the ball or isn't able to get some goals together. But sometimes be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you get it. So of course that's Petro's great line. I remember when someone said like they wanted to play Hopkins, we said, well, be careful what you wish for, you're gonna get it. So like I obviously respect the Virginia program greatly, but that's my point, is just like to get back into that like upper echelon club, you got to take somebody out, and Virginia fits the bill. They are an elite team, and this is the money round. Like you beat Lars in the quarterfinals. Like I think that shows something about the program.
Yeah, I think the pace is like because you look at the pace stats and like Virginia plays at such a faster pace than Hopkins. Virginia's like the fastest team in the country. Hopkins is one of the slowest. But the first game Hopkins was able to run. And I feel like Hopkins has just kind of been – I feel like both teams, the way they want to play has just kind of been they've sort of been pushed in those directions. Virginia doesn't always play like literally the fastest team. They're not always like a top 3 in the country in pace or number 1. Like, but I feel like over the last couple weeks with, having to play from behind, and at times some of the turnovers things, it feels like they've just kind of been sped up. And also the ACC is a very fast league. Hopkins, meanwhile, tends more towards methodical, but also the Big Ten is such a slow-paced league that I feel like Hopkins has kind of retreated into that. I feel like this game isn't necessarily destined to be played as, Virginia wants to run and Hopkins wants to play defensive. I said in the first, I thought Hopkins needed to run with them, and they had a lot of success. I think in terms of like the D mids and Hopkins, D mid, like and the O mids, like that's good for Hopkins. The X factor is Ben Ware, who's just a freaking demon in the middle of the field. So yeah, I think that is key. I think we had someone on Twitter, Glenn Smith, I think said that these matchups are kind of determined by face-offs. I don't know if that's the case necessarily. Hopkins, a big advantage for them was having Gabriel be out in the first game, and they were able to dominate on faceoffs. But the faceoffs actually got closer in the fourth quarter when Hopkins made that run. I think it was in that game. I could, I'll double check on that, but I believe that was the case in the end. And so I don't know that. And then obviously, you've got 2 great faceoff guys in the first game with Stathakis and Mason Cone, and then also you have John Mullen, who's been really good for Cuse, giving them kind of multiple options on the at the faceoff dot. Yeah, like it was 4-4 faceoffs in the fourth. Like Hopkins had the event, they were up 16-10, but it was split right down. Like, and in that fourth quarter, the first game, Hopkins scored the first 3 goals to get to 14-12. UVA answered back, but Hopkins kept kind of having the punch. I think Carlson is the guy for Hopkins. UVA is not going to guard him with a pole, or pardon me, they are going to guard him with a pole this time. I imagine. They should win the matchups. But yeah, I think both games should be great. Go either way. I'm excited to get down there to Towson. Safe to answer your question about the weather. It looks kind of like it did for the second half of the game at Hofstra today. Overcast, but doesn't see any chance of rain, and 75.
I'll take that. No rain.
And to answer, Mark had the question earlier. To answer, he told me to wear a Hopkins shirt.
You know the one, Jake. You know the one. We want more, Jake.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Look, you Hopkins guys got to stop this alliance from Maryland just because it makes your conference look good.
Let's slow down here. When Cuse and Virginia play, they don't even act like it's a rivalry. It's like this is a celebration for the sport of lacrosse. It's just a beautiful, harmonious, heavenly.
It's like those international friendlies that got children. They take them out into the field and they walk.
It's like this is the game you want to show your friend if they never.
This is what the creator was thought when he made this game.
Well, that does. To be fair, that does have its roots way back when they were just playing 24-23 bangers back in the day. And
like the mentions of the creator are never higher than Syracuse Virginia games. Like this is a game for the creator. It's like
heroic game.
Like, what about a game where the 2 teams hate each other? That's what I want.
Well, that's Syracuse Cornell. You got that going. That gets nuts too.
So. Oh yeah. I don't. Let's slow down a little bit here.
Speaking of rivalry games,
And listen, and safe just likes everything. Yes. Like safe just winning the lacrosse. Safe needs to get one of those NCAA.
They do sell. They were selling NCAA lacrosse.
What a good game that we can celebrate.
Next week, Safe, you got to get one of the NCAA lacrosse championship hats. They were selling them at the quarterfinal for $38.
I may wear that to the final four. I got my credential approved, so I'll wear that or Eagles hat. I will probably go with the Eagles hat, but
Oh man.
But when I get on the field, like whoever wins on Memorial Day Monday, I'll try to find an NCAA hat. I'll shake the hands of the refs. That's good.
Great
game, guys.
Good game, guys.
I'm sure they got one of those with like the banner logo with the NCAA lacrosse emblem, like the Olympics have. Those like here's the guy with the stick, and it's the banner logo. Maybe they sell one of those generic ones. Then it would never go out of date. One other thing to touch upon: women's Final Four all set as well. You got Northwestern Florida in one semifinal. And once again, hello, darkness, my old friend. Syracuse, Boston College in the other. Again. So those will be.
Obviously, you love Syracuse men's lacrosse, but to beat BC, like
so lethargic.
not well, you rather them both win, obviously, but like just more satisfying to like finally take care of the Eagles.
Yeah, that would be so cathartic to just beat Boston College finally after every. It's like every time we play Boston College, they find a new way to come back and beat us. It's like it's a choose your own adventure. Syracuse
it's like Maryland, Virginia
yeah,
used to be.
It's a choose your own adventure thing. Syracuse gets off to a fast start, and then you see how Boston College crawls their way back in. Is it by not letting Syracuse score a goal for 15 minutes? Is it because BC goes on a 7-1 run with an offensive blitz? Is it because of a bad call starts an avalanche that goes Boston College way? Who's to say? Because every game's a different way that Boston College finds a way to win. So if Syracuse is able to beat BC, that would be extremely, extremely satisfying. Now, do I think they would have any shot against Northwestern if they would play them? Probably not. But if we could at least beat BC, I will be very, very happy.
Just have kind of vibes of like the Miracle on Ice thing, where it's like we've got BC. Yeah, that's not the gold medal game. But no, yeah, you look at this. Cuse, this whole BC run started by beating Cuse. They beat them 21-10 in 2017.
Yep.
Then I was at the 21 championship game, which was back and forth for like 3 quarters, and then BC just ran away from them in the fourth. Then last year they lose by 1 in the semifinal. So they've lost they got upset in 2017 as the 6th seed by being dump trucked. 2021 they played a back and forth game, then just got blown out at the end. And then 2023 they lost a 1-goal semifinal game. So yeah, it's pretty tough.
Yeah, and then this regular season first game, Syracuse had a huge lead, and then BC won in overtime. And then ACC semifinal, Boston College just suffocated Syracuse from the second quarter onwards. So it's like, well, you know what I always say? It's hard to beat a team 3 times. Maybe the third time's a charm for the Orange.
You do have to hand it to BC. I know Ryan will say, but like, they've made 6 straight championship games. Like, the last time there was a tournament that was played, the championship was played without Boston College, was 2016. We were still in the Obama administration. Like,
then I finally got the women's lacrosse special episode I wanted with BC great Lauren Costello, and then it all went downhill from here.
You put it into existence. Now the counterpoint would be, I guess perhaps similar to Maryland. The men, they're 1-5 in the championship.
And Northwestern looks great.
Yeah, Northwestern's going for. They lost this. They did lose.
Yeah, they lost to Notre Dame and Penn State. But for what it's worth, against other Final Four teams, 3-goal win against Syracuse at the beginning of the year, and they beat Boston College by 3 as well. So they beat Cuse and BC by 3. They did not play Florida, and Florida though red hot at the right time. They were 18-2 heading into 17-2 heading into the tournament. But since then, they beat North Carolina in the first round. Then on the road against Virginia, so they were in Virginia's pod. 5-goal win against UVA, and UVA's had some big wins this year. And then they go into Maryland and beat them by 6 as well. So the Gators peaking at the right time.
Kelly Amani Hiller's going for the record, right? Men or women coach, 9 national titles.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Cindy Timchel has 8. and Hiller has 8 herself.
Does this
Bill
include
Tierney's got
D2,
7.
D3? Yeah, that I was
That's
gonna have to
I
look
don't
up because
know.
I feel like there's some D2 and D3 men's and women's teams, like a Salisbury or.
Yeah, Salisbury has won 13 with Jim Berkman. So, but D1, men or women, I think 9 would be the record in the NCAA era because Syracuse, Roy
Jr.'s
Jr.'s got a.
He's got 5.
I want to say Syracuse on 10.
5, yeah, it's 5.
So
yeah,
five,
Tedesco is 5.
It's split 5. But I guess if you count the, I don't know if they're counting the 91.
So he has 6 with the 90.
So, yes, 6.
And we're counting
90,
1990.
Yeah. But yeah, he would have 6.
NCAA marketing counts it. We're counting it.
So then, that would be the record for Kelly Maya Hiller. She wins at 11. It's not, or not 11, pardon me, 9, but still, it's nuts.
All righty, so guess we'll wrap things up with it. So thank you for joining us on this. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to us at the Crosse Commission on YouTube. We've had a lot of fun all year long with these live streams, and keeping it going with these during the tournament has been a lot of fun to do. And also make sure to subscribe on the Patreon at the Crosse Commission over there. $5 a month gets you a whole oodle of extra content.
Yes.
And
please subscribe.
And additionally, you can subscribe to us on your favorite podcast outlet as well, where we've got, after the dust settles this weekend, a lot of Final Four previewing to do. So definitely subscribe to the Crosse Commission podcast. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Man,
can't wait, man.
Folks, you folks better stay hydrated because I'm staying hydrated on tears. I'm drinking the tears of my enemies.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a certain WWE women's. What do they call? Are they still superstars? Is the term?
I don't know, guys, wrestlers, whatever. That's what I'm doing, man. So stay hydrated. And Becky Lynch for president.